This is United Network News with Sunny Galt, Calen Gipp, Kimberly Gogan, and our field messengers from around the world. Here's today's real news.
The Food Forest Abundance Project empowers people and communities to grow their own food. UNN Field Messenger Kelly interviews the founder about his plans.
Hi, this is Kelly coming from Central Florida for United Network News. I'm here with my friend Jim Gale and Allison Sackett, whom are good friends of mine from Central Florida, and we're going to take a little tour of Jim Gale's Food Forest Abundance Project here in Central Florida. And my friend Allison is going to do us the favor of being our camera girl.
So the 411, for about 16 years, I've been obsessed with versions of the question, how do we catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption of using our resources wisely? And the culmination of all of that questioning this reality has led to a Freedom Farm Academy model. And that's where we're standing. This is the first Freedom Farm Academy. So this area was planted 11 months ago. Now, there was sand here, and it was inert. It was lifeless sand. It came from a pond that we had dug. So we started with a blank canvas. Now, 11 months later, we have enough food to feed several families. And this is just the start. As the years go, this will create epic abundance, infinite abundance. You can count the seeds in one of those papaya over there, but you cannot count the papaya in a single seed. It's infinite, my friends. Nature or God's design is infinite abundance. And one of the best tools in a permaculture landscape or in any backyard is the chicken for abundance. They have multiple functions. Not only do they provide eggs and meat, but they can actually clean your yard of some of the insects that could otherwise be pests like ticks.
Wrapping up here at the Food Forest Abundance Project in Central Florida, where Jim and his team are building a micro school, an abundance academy where you can come and learn how to do permaculture. This is Kelly, Field Messenger. Have a great day.
The Boreal forest around Fort McMurray in Canada has remarkably recovered after the 2016 fires, transforming it into a thriving ecosystem. UNN Field Messenger Steve M. observes this change.
Good day to all. Welcome to the Boreal Forest and the fall of 2024. This is a small tour around Fort McMurray. I'm Steve M., reporting for United Network News. Here we are down by the Clearwater River, and as you can see, it's very colorful. The hills are aflame with the yellow and the green and the red. Here's a better look upriver. Quick walk in the forest here. 2016 saw this all burn down to just nothing really, and in the last 8 years it's kind of growing back, and you can see there's a lot of leaves down and trees. There's a lot showing that a lot of these trees are standing dead, but a little bit of leaves growing. It's pretty interesting. The forest can come back that fast. Like I said, 2016 there was nothing here but burnt trees, and now look at it. It's actually beautiful. Here in the forest, it's hard to believe that 8 years ago this was burning and burnt to the ground. All the bush was gone. There's a dead spruce tree right up over there. There's other stuff buried here in the bush. It's amazing how fast things grow back. This planet is beautiful. Steve M. reporting, UNN News. Thank you.
In Queensland, Australia, UNN Field Messenger Amanda interviews an artist who uses her art to highlight why trees matter.
Hi, I'm Amanda and I'm Field Messenger coming to you from Charters Towers in North Queensland. My focus is on landholders to educate them about the value of trees in their landscape. Anyway, trees are a very sensitive issue in Queensland, and everyone was cut down, and half of them were taken. So, yeah, it just showed me what a sensitive issue it was. If I'm getting my message across, I'm not sure, but I'm certainly stirring the pot. Trees are important. Australia is the most deforested and extinction hotspot there is in the world currently. Trees are disappearing in the rural landscape of Australia so quickly because there's this political war going on between landholders and the government over the Vegetation Management Act, and landholders are fearful of losing control over their land. We've ruined 400 million years of evolution in our soils and our plants. And my message is about we can grow the biodiversity back. Biodiversity is biosecurity. We can grow the biodiversity back, and it's up to us to come back up again. And we can do it fast as long as we leave the trees in the landscape to regrow and build up the biodiversity again. This is Amanda signing off from Charters Towers, Queensland, Australia.
When it comes to seafood, tuna is a popular choice for meals around the world. Tuna is known for being incredibly nutritious, packed with protein, minerals, and vitamins. It's also a top source of selenium amongst meat, and it is low in fat, though that means it has fewer omega-3 fatty acids compared to other seafood. However, there is a downside to tuna: mercury. Mercury is a powerful neurotoxin that mostly gets into our oceans from human activities, such as burning fossil fuels. It builds up in big, long-living fish like tuna from contaminated prey. Mercury levels have been on the rise since the gold rush in 1850, and with its use in modern medicine, people are exposed to more mercury than ever. Despite efforts to reduce mercury emissions, researchers report tuna mercury levels have remained unchanged since 1971. There's a range of mercury levels amongst the 15 different tuna species. Smaller types like skipjack have less mercury, while albacore and yellowfin have higher levels. Big eye and bluefin tuna can have even more.
Just one bluefin tuna can sell for millions at the Toyosu market auction in Japan. Because of this price, there's a bustling enterprise of fake bluefin tuna. Bluefin is the most expensive kind of tuna because it's the largest, high in fat, and so rare. In 2018, Spanish authorities uncovered a group that sold over $14 million worth of illegally fished tuna between Malta and Spain. Police arrested dozens.
The tuna fishery is especially difficult to manage because tuna are migratory in nature, and as a result, vessels targeting tuna are usually fishing across multiple jurisdictions.
But there's another type of fraud: fake tuna. That includes trying to sell escolar, a cheap fish that could have dangerous levels of mercury, as white tuna. Oceana's 2013 study of fish DNA found that 59% of tuna samples at U.S. restaurants and grocery stores were mislabeled.
Having too much mercury in the bloodstream can lead to poisoning or toxicity, posing serious health risks for those who eat a lot of seafood. Mercury is especially harmful to kids and pregnant women. That's why the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, suggests keeping it to no more than 3 servings of canned light tuna a week, or just 1 serving if you're having albacore or yellowfin while pregnant. For kids under 12, even less is better. Other countries are even more cautious about tuna, and some experts think it's best to skip it altogether during pregnancy or for small children. While the FDA doesn't set specific limits for other adults, playing it safe by following the same advice isn't a bad idea.
There are certain types of tuna that are good and certain types that are not so good because they contain 3 times as much mercury. Now, the problem with mercury is it interferes with certain enzymes involving selenium. And certain fish have more selenium than others. And so the mercury that's in the environment, it's in the water that the fish are exposed to, might not affect you too much if there's high amounts of selenium, because selenium can counter this mercury. But you have to realize if there's too much mercury, it can lock up these selenium enzymes, rendering them inactive. And this can create a whole series of mercury toxic symptoms, okay, like tremors, headaches, nausea, insomnia, weak muscles, twitches, mood swings, and there's a lot of other symptoms as well.
Concerns are growing over the health risks from mercury in tuna products across Europe, too. A recent report shows current safety standards aren't really protecting the public from mercury exposure. Officials are catching flack for allowing rules that seem to put industry profits over consumer safety, letting tuna have more mercury than other fish.
When it comes to the World Health Organization's concern about public health, it's on the same list as asbestos and arsenic. Yet every one of the 148 tins of tuna analysed by the Bloom and Foodwatch organisations were found to contain mercury. Selected at random in Britain, France, Italy, Germany and Spain, the levels, they say, are dangerous.
Instead of setting limits to protect our health, authorities are accused of basing acceptable mercury levels on what's actually found in tuna, focusing more on sales than safety. Right now, the mercury limit for tuna is 3 times higher than for less contaminated fish, which experts say is pretty risky. What's even more concerning is the lack of thorough testing and monitoring in the tuna supply chain. In big fishing areas like the Seychelles, there's hardly any testing before tuna makes its way to Europe. Once it's there are only a few tests on fresh tuna and almost none on canned tuna.
The tuna consumer, be careful. There is a new study that has been done in Europe with 5 European countries. They analyzed 148 tuna cans from different producers, from different brands, and they found out 13 times more mercury than the limit authorized. It's very bad for pregnant women, obviously, and for anyone consuming anyway. Right now, if you're 70 kilograms or less and you're eating 1 can of tuna, you're already contaminated because it's above the limit authorized. And something going on between the tuna industry and the government or any authorities related to food safety. They already have an understanding with the tuna industry to allow them 3 times more mercury than the limit authorized for any other type of food, which is already bad for the humans. But after this study, we found out all of them. So there is over half of the 148 different brands of tuna can that have 13 times more mercury than the 3 times more limit authorized. That's insane. Better stay away from tuna because this is not going to be good in the long term.
The investigation calls for the European Commission to lower the mercury threshold in tuna to match the strictest limits for other fish. The report also recommends banning sales of tuna exceeding this threshold to protect public health, especially for vulnerable groups like children and the elderly. A petition targeting major European retailers demands stricter mercury controls, reduced tuna promotions, and clear labeling to inform consumers about health risks. It's almost impossible to avoid mercury entirely, as it is present in many of the fish and seafood we consume. However, reducing your intake of mercury from tuna can be achieved with mindful choices, such as choosing tuna varieties known to have lower mercury levels and limiting how much tuna you're eating.
Which canned tuna has the lowest mercury? I saw a video on this by an influential doctor and asked how the tuna was analyzed. His response, many sources. Disappointed, I did a little research and found his source was back from 2009. The species, age, and depth of feeding have the biggest influence on mercury levels. Skipjack light tuna has lower mercury levels than albacore. 2 sustainably caught brands of skipjack are Safe Catch and Wild Planet, with an average mercury level of 0.04 and 0.067 ppm respectively.
Incorporating a diverse selection of seafood into your diet, like salmon, sardines, or mackerel, which typically have lower mercury content, can also help balance nutrition while minimizing risk. In the end, enjoying tuna is all about balance and making informed choices. By staying mindful of mercury levels and opting for safer options, you can still enjoy this seafood favorite. Electric vehicles have long been promoted as the greener, more affordable alternative to petrol or diesel cars. However, recent data suggests owning an EV might actually cost more than anticipated. The price of electric vehicles is typically higher than traditional gasoline cars, primarily due to the cost of the battery, which is the most expensive component of an EV. Battery technology is advancing and costs are gradually decreasing. Still, EVs tend to have a higher sticker price, especially when comparing them to similar gasoline models. However, some factors help bridge this price gap, including government incentives like rebates, lower registration fees, and tax credits in many regions. Here's how tax credits work for both new and used electric vehicles purchased in the U.S.
How does the EV tax credit actually work? Let's find out. The electric vehicle tax credit is a non-refundable tax credit that's offered to taxpayers in order to purchase a qualifying electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid. Non-refundable tax credits lower your tax liability by the same credit amount. There's a new modified tax benefit that was put in place for 2023 and will go all the way until 2032, which allows for a maximum tax credit of up to $7,500 for new electric vehicles and up to $4,000 for used vehicles, but for used vehicles that is limited to 30% of the total sale price. You can only claim one credit per vehicle, but in 2024, you'll have the choice of if you want that tax credit applied to your federal return, or if you want it transferred over to the dealership where you purchased the vehicle to lower the cost of your car by the same amount that you get approved for. There is a price cap on the EVs that qualify. For SUVs and pickup trucks, that retail price can exceed $80,000. And for sedans and passenger vehicles, that sale price can exceed $55,000. And for used EVs, it can exceed $25,000.
Let's talk about car insurance, which is required in most countries, including the U.S. Car insurance rates are determined based on several key factors that help insurers assess risk. These factors include the driver's age, driving experience, accident or claims history, and, you guessed it, the type of vehicle. Electric vehicles are, well, electric. It's like the fancy new oven you recently bought with all the electric bells and whistles. If something gets damaged or no longer works, you may need to replace the whole thing.
The real big added cost to owning an EV is probably your insurance rates, which, anecdotally, I'd say can be double what an ICE vehicle is, just because the cost to repair these battery electric vehicles is incredibly high. They're extremely vulnerable to getting totaled out if you just do some minor damage to the car, because the battery pack extends from, to every side and corner of the car. If that battery pack, which is the single most expensive component of the car, gets damaged at all, usually it can't be repaired.
Wow.
At a collision center. The whole thing needs to be replaced.
So people just have to be aware, there's a lot more to it than just the base price you see.
There's also the price it takes to charge an electric vehicle. The price for gas or petrol at the pump is pretty standard. You select the type of gas you want and you pay the price listed on the sign. There's a lot more variables to consider with electric cars. You can easily overspend on charging your electric vehicle if you rely heavily on public charging stations, particularly fast chargers, which tend to be more expensive. Using pay-per-use charging networks without considering membership options or discount programs can add up quickly, as membership rates typically offer reduced prices per session. Installing a home charger can be a good investment if you drive frequently, as it usually offers lower rates than public chargers, especially when paired with a time of use plan. Many utility companies offer lower electricity rates during off-peak hours. So charging your EV overnight or during non-peak times can reduce costs significantly.
So how much does a Tesla charger actually cost to install at your house? Let's go over the real numbers. This is Tesla's wall connector, and right now it'll cost you about $450, and this is how you charge your Tesla every night. But let me show you this. An actual way to save even more money is you can schedule your charging to start overnight. I have mine starting at 11 p.m., and that's actually my super off-peak hours. That'll save me almost half of my charging. So that'll run you maybe $70 to $80 a month, plus the cost of this hardware at $450. That's all it takes to charge a Tesla.
There is the potential of saving money with electric vehicles, but it's not guaranteed. And there are other issues to consider when purchasing an electric vehicle, such as its limited driving range and the negative impact the manufacturing of these cars has on our environment. Youth crime in Australia frequently appears in media headlines. It's often described as a crisis, but official data shows youth crime has significantly decreased across Australia, highlighting the dangers of misusing statistics. In many Australian states, the age of criminal responsibility is set as low as 10 years old. However, children 10 to 13 years old can only be held criminally liable if they genuinely understood their actions were seriously wrong. Recently, the Northern Territory made the controversial decision to reduce the age limit to 10.
There is no credible evidence that locking children up at the age of 10 reduces crime in the long term. Criminalising the behaviour of young and vulnerable children creates this really vicious cycle of disadvantage and increases the likelihood of ongoing experiences with the legal system, so repeat offending. This is the politicisation of children by the new NT incoming government, and we're really disappointed in that. It's the kind of policy that is designed to make people feel safer without actually doing anything to make them safer.
When it comes to youth crime, each state is telling its own unique story. In New South Wales, there has been a slight uptick in youth crime, with numbers rising by 2% from last year. Youth offender, those 10 to 17 years old, make up about 16% of all offenders in the state. The most common transgression, fare evasion, with more than 7,000 young people getting caught riding without a ticket. In Victoria, the situation is a bit different. There was a general downward trend in youth crime from 2014 to 2023, but recent reports show a sharp rise, with offenses by 14 to 17-year-olds jumping 30% in 2023. The usual suspects here are aggravated burglary and vehicle theft, crimes often associated with social media challenges. In Queensland, the conversation around youth crime has been buzzing, especially with media playing a big role. Recent data indicates a drop of 10.7% in youth offenses in early 2024 compared to the previous year. However, not all crimes are declining. Car thefts and assaults are reportedly on the rise. The state is cracking down with stricter penalties and focusing on repeat offenders. While fewer youth might be breaking the law, those who do tend to commit more severe acts.
I also want to confirm this morning that the legislation before the Parliament will raise the age of criminal responsibility to 12, and that is where it will stay. This morning we are announcing changes to our laws, changes that will firstly strengthen the bail test, making it clear to bail decision makers that if they think that someone poses an unacceptable risk of seriously reoffending while on bail, they shouldn't get bail in the first place. Plain and simple. Secondly, we're providing clarity, clearer powers to Victoria Police to revoke bail, because bail is not a privilege. It's not a given. Sorry, bail is a privilege, not a given. We are creating a new standalone offence for committing a serious crime while on bail, delivering a tougher response to those who deliberately flout our laws. We will be establishing COBRA, a new council that will be made up of youth justice experts, police, but also schools and other youth justice representatives to keep track of these offenders, but also not just to keep track of these offenders, but also to tell us, the government, police, the courts and all the agencies about what is driving their behaviour so we can change their behaviour. We know this. The evidence tells us this. If we can stop crime before it starts, if we can help a young person to turn things around, to turn their lives around, that's the best way to keep our communities safe.
Breaking down the numbers from these states, a few trends emerge. Many of these crimes come from repeat offenders, suggesting current rehabilitation efforts need a rethink. There's a noticeable influence of social media, pushing young people to commit crimes just for online fame. Regional areas face higher crime rates than metro cities, calling for specialized strategies. States like Queensland lean toward tough penalties, while New South Wales and Victoria look toward community-focused programs. The new government in Queensland is pushing forward with a plan to address youth crime by introducing tougher laws that match adult penalties to adult crimes. This policy aims to sentence youth as young as 10, guilty of serious offenses such as murder, manslaughter, grievous bodily harm, and unlawful use of motor vehicles as adults.
Under the LNP's adult crime, adult time policy, if a 10-year-old committed murder, they would be sentenced to life in prison with a non-parole period of at least 20 years. Is that right?
They'd be subject to the same processes in the court as an adult would be. Now, what the ultimate outcome would be would depend on the evidence before the court, but potentially they could end up with the maximum penalty under those circumstances. But
and that is the sentence for an adult who commits murder?
Well, there are a whole series of mitigating effects there, and it would depend on then a finding of guilt in those circumstances. But certainly the issue in those circumstances is for a series of crimes, murder, manslaughter, deliberately driving a vehicle at police or citizens, and committing those sorts of heinous crimes, we believe the appropriate response to that, to send a message to the community, is adult time when you commit an adult crime.
So are you comfortable with a 10-year-old getting a life sentence?
Yes, I've looked at the numbers, and I think in terms of creating a headline, people will go that way. But the reality is, what we're seeing is most of the violent offences where this is likely to occur are people in the 16, 17 and 18-year-old age group who are repeat recidivist offenders.
However, not everyone is convinced this approach works. Some experts argue just punishing young offenders doesn't tackle the root cause of youth crime. They point out factors like poverty, low education levels, and past traumas are the real drivers. Studies have shown that more harsh penalties might lead to more crime in the future. Youth crime in Australia is a complex issue that requires a balanced approach. Rising numbers in certain crimes don't tell the whole story. There's more to it, with varying trends depending on location and demographics. Stricter penalties might seem like an easy solution, but often miss deeper issues like socioeconomic challenges and lack of support. UNN is changing the face of news. Join us for our weekly Field Messenger meetings and learn how you can make a difference. Visit unitednetwork.earth for more information. Thanks for watching.